Revealed three daughters born of love's struggle, discover the incredible dynasty of Georgia, 1852. In the heart of Georgia, where the cotton fields stretched endlessly under the burning sun, three daughters were born into a legacy of strength and sacrifice. Their mother, Margaret, worked her fingers to the bone, a single parent facing a world that saw her as less than equal. Every dawn she rose before the first light, her heart heavy but her spirit unyielding. For Margaret, her three daughters were not merely children, they were the embodiment of her hopes and dreams, a testament to her resilience. Sarah, the eldest, was a firebrand. At 16, her passionate desire for education lit a flame in the hearts of those around her. "Why not learn like the boys?" she'd challenge. The townsfolk shook their heads, murmuring about how a woman's place was in the home. But Sarah was undeterred, devouring books by candlelight, her eyes growing wide with stories of women breaking barriers. The dreams she harbored clashed with the reality of societal norms, igniting struggles not just within her, but between her and her mother, who feared the world might swallow her daughter's ambition whole. Lucy, the spirited middle child, often found herself caught between Sarah's dreams and their mother's cautious approach. "I want to be heard," she'd shout during their heated discussions, the weight of tradition pressing down on her like a suffocating blanket. With every argument, Lucy's heart raced, her spirit thrumming with the yearning to find her own voice amid family expectations. She loved their land, the rich Georgia earth beneath her nails, yet longed for a world where she could shout her thoughts without fear. Then there was shy, timid Esther, the youngest, who often watched her sisters clash with wide, worried eyes. Yet she found strength in community, carrying fresh-baked bread to neighbors in need. Each smile from their faces was a salve on her quiet heart. She aspired to bridge the mounting divides, uniting the sisters and the townsfolk with shared stories and support. But tension loomed when a bitter land dispute arose, threatening their modest farm. It began with whispers in town, rumors that twisted their realities and threatened to tear Margaret's family apart. Sarah's heart fluttered closer to the son of the wealthiest landowner, a world far removed from her mother's toil. Yet in the glow of his charm, Sarah found a dangerous attraction that tugged at her dreams. Before they could fully grasp the storm brewing, tragedy struck. Margaret fell gravely ill, her strength dwindling like the waning light of a dusk. Panic clawed at the girls. They were alone, the fabric of their lives unraveling. In desperation, they called the townsfolk to gather for a meeting, hoping to rally their community. Together they shared their heartaches and fears, the room filling with voices, many once quiet, now uplifted. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As their collected grievances filled the air, unity emerged from the cracks of despair. Secrets spilled forth, stories of silent struggles and shared sacrifices. Behind the hardship, the town discovered a tapestry of bonds that defied traditions. Lucy's voice rang clear, and Esther, no longer shy, embraced her place within this melting pot of human experience. Hope flickered in the dimness of uncertainty, giving them the strength to carry on. Yet the question loomed large. Would they gather together under their mother's legacy, or would the glittering lure of wealth and society's divide drag them apart? As the sisters realized they stood at the precipice of change, they faced their greatest challenge yet. Would they unite their hearts to protect their family and their future? The community waited, breathless, as they prepared to confront their fate. In the pale morning light, the sisters gathered on the porch, their faces shadowed by uncertainty. Margaret lay inside, the flicker of existence growing dimmer with each passing hour. Sarah's heart beat heavily against her ribcage as she peered down the dirt road, anxiety tightening her throat. She wanted to reach out to her mother, to find comfort in her embrace, but her mind was tangled with thoughts of the meeting. What if they don't come? Lucy fretted, her brows knitting together. What if the town shrugs off our plea for help? We can't lose the farm. Esther clenched her hands tightly in her lap, leaning forward slightly, as if willing the world to hear them. They have to care. They know us. We've always been there. This is their chance to show they aren't just whisperers, but friends. As the sun rose higher, a gathering dust started to swirl on the horizon. The sisters kept watch, hoping for a sign. Those few moments stretched into what felt like hours. Finally, a figure emerged, then another, and soon a stream of townspeople filled the dusty road. Their hearts swelled with a mixture of fear and hope. One by one, families arrived, faces etched with concern. Their voices mingled in a murmur. When Lucy stepped forward, her chest puffed with determination, their discussions quieted. "Thank you," she began, her voice steadying despite the tremor beneath. "My mother, she's the heart of our family. Without her, we don't just lose a home, we lose everything we are." A hushed silence fell over the crowd, eyes glistening with empathy. Someone stepped out. It was Mr. Hayes, the elder of the town, and a man known for his judgment. "We can't let the farm go, not while there's still breath in that woman's body. She's given much to this community, and we owe her," he declared, his voice a beacon cutting through the haze of despair. As the meeting swirled, plans began to form. Community members pledged their labor, each one promising to stand shoulder to shoulder with the sisters. Their resolve drew strength from shared stories of their struggles, trades, and triumphs. They spoke of how, through every season of hardship, Margaret had lent a helping hand. But as discussions of lifting their family's burden flourished, Sarah felt a familiar tug in her heart. The memory of her mysterious attraction to the wealthy landlord's son flickered like a flame in her mind. How could she fight for her family while being pulled toward a life that felt unattainable now? Suddenly, she felt small, dwarfed by the enormity of what was at stake. Esther, sensing Sarah's silence amidst the gathering storm, her heart pounding with concern, approached her sister. "You're not alone, Sarah. Remember the strength we have? Together, we can stand against anything. I believe in you." Lucy joined them, placing her hand on Sarah's shoulder. "We'll find our way through this, but we need each other, now more than ever." The sisters locked eyes, a new understanding washing over them. They were not just three girls from the heart of Georgia anymore. They were warriors of hope, defenders of their legacy. Yet, as the meeting drew to a close, a shadow darkened Sarah's heart. Would she be able to resist the lure of what was easy, or would she falter in the face of her mother's legacy? With the community rallying around them, the sisters felt the undeniable power of unity. But a question lingered, echoing in the air. In the battle to save their home, were they strong enough to face their own desires? And as the sun dipped low in the sky, casting shadows longer than their fears, Sarah took a breath, preparing for the toughest fight yet. Would she take a step back toward what she thought she wanted, or face the reality that awaited them all? As dusk settled over the farm, the sisters found themselves wrapped in a cocoon of swirling emotions. The warm hum of community voices faded, replaced by a thick silence that flowed like the shadows stretching across the porch. Each sister carried the weight of the day on her shoulders, yet they clung to a newfound determination. Esther broke the silence first, her voice barely above a whisper. "We've got to go inside. We can't let Mom see us like this." Her hands trembled as she brushed a lock of hair behind her ear, struggles etched on her face. Lucy inhaled deeply, steadying herself as she squared her shoulders. "You're right, Esther. She needs to feel hope when she looks at us. She needs to feel that she'll fight to stay." Sarah felt the familiar heaviness settle in her chest again, the clash of commitment to family and the pull of her own dreams twinging like a final note of a song. Unresolved. She nodded slowly, but stayed rooted on the porch. "Are we strong enough?" she finally voiced, staring out into the darkness, willing herself to find an answer. "What if we fail?" Esther stepped closer, a fierce spark lighting her eyes. "We're not going to fail, Sarah, not with everyone behind us. We just need to believe that together we can face anything." A moment passed, thick with the kind of vulnerability that only sisters could share. "Let's go inside," Lucy urged softly, reaching out to pull Sarah along. "We can't let our fears overwhelm us now." As they entered the house, the scent of wildflowers and lavender lingered, remnants of their mother's touch draping comfort within the walls. They walked into the dimly lit room where Margaret lay, frail and fragile under the eaves, yet every slight rise and fall of her chest radiated an aching sense of hope. "Mom," Sarah murmured, moving forward slowly. The trembling in her fingers clawed at her again as she brushed her mother's hair back, feeling the warmth of her skin against the chill of the room. "We're fighting for you. We won't let go of this place." Margaret's eyes fluttered open, and for a moment the world faded, just mother and daughter. A smile ghosted across her lips, illuminating the worry etched in the lines on her face. "You're strong, my girl," she whispered, her voice barely louder than a breath, yet powerfully filled with warmth. "Just remember, it's not just this life we're fighting for, but for the love that raised us." A surge of emotion flooded through Sarah, a mix of gratitude, pride, and the startling clarity of what mattered most. It was not just about saving the farm, it was about preserving love, familiarity, and shared memories. As the night deepened, the sisters huddled close, a fleeting calm between them. They shared stories of laughter, of dances in the summer sunlight, of their mother guiding them through life's hardships. Words flowed freely, and as they told tales, the heaviness in Sarah's heart began to dissolve like mist. But then a sudden noise from outside made them freeze. The sound of hooves against hard-packed earth resonated through the night. "Is it them?" Lucy's voice cut through the stillness, her brow furrowing in confusion. "What if it's him?" Sarah breathed, the thought coiling tight in her stomach. The door creaked as it swung open, the darkness creeping inside. Shadows loomed larger as a figure emerged against the fading light. "Who's there?" Esther called, her voice steady, yet tremors of uncertainty lurked beneath. The figure stepped into the room. Recognition hit Sarah like a jolt, igniting a whirlwind of emotion. "James?" she gasped, staring wide-eyed at the last person she expected to see. But what she didn't expect was the urgent plea in his eyes, the desperate reason he had come, drawing them deeper into the fight for their home. James stood there, his silhouette cutting into the soft light that pooled around the sisters like a protective blanket. His eyes darted around the room, landing on Margaret, who was still nestled in bed, her frail hands curling around the blankets. The vulnerability in her gaze met the intensity of his own, as if words left unspoken danced between them. "Sarah, I'm glad I found you," he managed, his voice thick with urgency. "I couldn't wait any longer." "What are you talking about?" Her heart raced. She had always felt the bond between them, flickering like a candle in the wind, yet now it pulsed with fear. "What's wrong?" He took a step closer, shadow dancing over her face, making her anxiety flare. "It's about the farm, and what's happening with it. Things aren't just falling apart here. There's something bigger, something we didn't see. I think they're planning to come for you all." The sisters stiffened, their shared energy wavering, shadows of dread creeping in like an unwelcome chill. Esther stepped in front of Sarah instinctively, her protective nature igniting. "Who's they, James?" "Investors," he said, shaking his head, desperation tainting his tone. "They want this land. They want to turn it into something else entirely, a resort or development. I don't know, but their eyes are set on your family." "But why?" Lucy's voice trembled. "What do we do?" I overheard them talking at the diner. It's more than just whispers behind the counters. It's a plan. We have to act fast, gather the community. If we wait—" his words hung heavy, a warning that bit into the night air like the sting of frost. "If you wait, it might be too late." A wave of realization washed over Sarah, pushing aside the warmth that clung to her just moments before. Fear and determination rolled inside her, the flicker of hope battling the shadows closing in from every angle. "We can't let them take this from us," she whispered, her eyes widening with resolve. "This land, Mom, our memories, we have to fight." Margaret's eyes shimmered with a light that had almost gone dim. "Girls, sometimes fighting means more than just pushing back. It's standing together. It's love holding you close, fueling the fire." James nodded, his expression softening. "Margaret's right. Rally the community, the farmers, the townsfolk. Show them the heart this place holds. You just need to help them remember." Esther wiped a stray tear from her cheek, a nervous energy sparking in her veins. "We can do that. We can bring them together." The room filled with a palpable sense of purpose, each sister leaning slightly closer as hope began to ignite within them. "We'll hold a meeting," Lucy proposed, comforted by her sister's embrace. "Word will spread. People care about this place." "Yes," Sarah added, her voice taking on strength, "and we won't let fear win. Together we stand." But just as certainty settled within their hearts, the sound of galloping hooves echoed once more, louder this time, resonating through the walls. The sisters exchanged worried looks, and James's brow furrowed. They may already be here. Here. The air thickened with tension as they prepared themselves for whatever was to come. "What if it's too late?" Sarah's voice cracked, a new wave of uncertainty crashing over their newfound resolve, leaving them vulnerable and exposed. The sisters glanced at James, who met their eyes with an intensity that promised one thing. The fight for their home had only just begun. Would they have the strength to face the storm brewing on the horizon? The pounding of hooves grew louder, reverberating through the wooden beams of the old farmhouse. Each thud felt like a drumbeat, urging the sisters to action, an unspoken challenge amidst the creeping dread. The light in the room shifted, shadows dancing wildly as if caught in a whirlwind of fear and adrenaline. "Mama!" Esther whisper-shouted, her hands curling into anxious fists. She turned to Margaret, whose eyes glimmered with concern. "We can't stay here. What if they've come to take you?" "Stay brave, my girls." Margaret's voice trembled, but her gaze remained firm. "We fought for this home once. We'll fight for it again." James stepped forward, taking charge as panic flickered in the sisters' eyes. "We need to know what we're up against. Whatever they're planning, we can't face them alone." "Should we hide?" Lucy suggested, her voice barely above a whisper. The idea clung to her like a dark cloud, heavy and suffocating. "No," Sarah replied firmly, shaking her head. "Hiding won't protect us. We have to be ready to confront whatever comes, and we need a plan." She could feel the weight of every word. This was no longer just about the farm. It was a fight for everything they held dear. Suddenly, the noise outside stilled, replaced by hushed murmurs. The sisters exchanged fearful glances, adrenaline coursing through their veins as their hearts raced. The softness of the room was now overshadowed by an urgency that left them breathless. "What if they're already here?" Esther whispered, her protective instinct surging forward. "What do we do?" James put a hand on her shoulder, an anchor amidst the storm brewing inside the house. "We gather the community, just like we agreed. If they come here, we'll show them how strong we are together." Just as he finished, the front door burst open, slamming against the wall with a deafening crash. The sisters flinched, their bodies taut with anticipation. A group of men entered, their faces hidden in the shadows. They spoke in low tones, the chill of their presence washing over the sisters like a cold wind. James stepped in front of the sisters, a protective barrier ready to defend. "What do you want?" he demanded, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. One man, tall and broad-shouldered, stepped forward. "We're here on behalf of the investors. This property is no longer yours to keep." His voice was cold, and in it lingered the scent of greed. Margaret's heart sank, anger flaring inside her. "You think you can just take what doesn't belong to you? This land carries our history, our love, our lives. You'll have to do more than threaten us." The men sneered, their eyes glimmering with malice in the dim light. "You don't understand. We control this now." Sarah felt a surge of rage. "You can't control what you don't understand. We're fighting for our home, for our family." Her voice rang with conviction, a rallying cry against the tide threatening to wash over them. The front door remained open, light spilling into the dark, inviting fresh air, yet bringing with it uncertainty. Outside, the murmurs of the townsfolk began to grow, not with fear, but with resolve. Sarah could hear their voices, people she'd seen her whole life, coming together. "Listen," she turned to her sisters and James. "They want to break us apart. But look, everyone's listening. This is our moment to show them we're not alone." Tension crackled in the air, and for a heartbeat, the world outside faded. The sisters stood together, united, ready to face whatever storm approached. Could their strength truly beat the age-old machine of greed that threatened to tear their family apart? As footsteps echoed closer through the town, Sarah felt a weight settle in her chest. Would their fight be enough? Would love indeed conquer all? Barely able to breathe, the sisters clutched each other, their hearts aligned with purpose. But the question loomed, heavy and real. Would they win the battle for their legacy, or would the darkness consume them? Sarah's heart raced as the tension in the room thickened, each beat echoing the resolve pulsing through her. The words of those men rolled off her shoulders like rain on a tin roof. They thought they could intimidate them? She squared her shoulders, her sisters flanking her, a wall of determination formed by love and shared history. "Do you really believe we'll just let you take everything?" James questioned, his voice resonating with fortitude. The tall man scoffed, his eyes narrowing at the sisterly bond that stood before him. "Why would you fight? You have little to protect. This is a business venture, not a family reunion." A flurry of murmurs grew louder outside, transcending fear to become a force of unity. With every second, the weight of the sisters' legacy pressed down, demanding they stand firm. Something vibrant sparked within Sarah, a flicker of hope, igniting from the insistent chants coming from their neighbors. They weren't fighting alone. The community was waking up, just as they had decided. "Margaret!" Lucy's voice was barely a whisper, but her eyes reflected the light of determination. "We have to show them. We can't let them think we're scared." Nodding in agreement, Margaret stepped forward. The fire in her chest burned brighter now. "You didn't just interrupt dinner," she said steadily. "You disturbed our sense of family. This land isn't just dirt and crops to us. It's a tapestry woven from generations of love, laughter, and resilience." As she spoke, the shadows in the room seemed to dissipate, replaced by the light of conviction. "Look outside," Esther urged, her voice rising, breaking through them. Fog of intimidation. "They're gathering! They believe in us!" The men exchanged perplexed glances, but the sisters all turned, eyes drawn to the door, where faces of neighbors emerged, lined with concern, yet brimming with strength. The sight was striking. Men, women, and children, each stepping forward, standing in solidarity, refusing to let fear dictate the old farmhouse's fate. "Together!" Sarah called out, her voice ringing like a bell through the clearing crowd. "We will stand together!" As her words hung in the air, they found root in those present. Each sincere nod from a neighbor, every determined hand that gripped a pitchfork or a shovel, cemented their community's resolve. The anxious energy shifted, transforming into a wave of anxious courage. "Now is the moment," Sarah whispered to her sisters, her pulse racing with the possibilities ahead. Fear had given way to a fierce heart. "We can do this, together." The men shifted awkwardly, realizing that this wasn't just about them anymore. They faced something larger, a tidal wave of unity they hadn't anticipated. The energy around Margaret and her daughters shifted into a living thing, vibrant and hungry for justice. "Leave while you can," the broad-shouldered man finally said, voice wavering. "You might regret this." "Regret?" Margaret echoed, her spine straight. "The only regret would be kneeling before greed, not today." The men hesitated, and in that moment, something shifted. Swallowing hard, they turned and exited the farmhouse, leaving only a lingering chill. There was a collective sigh of relief that came from the assembled neighbors, a sound of hope rising like steam from a kettle. But Sarah wasn't done yet. She reached out, extending her hand to pull James closer. "This is just a start, isn't it?" "We'll prepare," he said, his tone firm. "This will only be the beginning." But as they stared into the distance, unwilling to let their eyes leave the shadows that had now receded, Sarah felt the nagging question still lingering deep in her gut. What more would they face? Would their unity be enough when the investors returned with greater force? The sun dipped lower on the horizon, and the community stood strong at their side. But the darkness of greed loomed nearby, waiting for another chance. Would they be ready? The tension in the air had shifted, but an unsettling energy lingered. The crowd outside buzzed with excitement, but beneath that layer, the anxiety was palpable. There was still uncertainty about what lay ahead. Sarah's heart still raced, matching the rhythm of the chanting community. She felt her sister's presence next to her, strengthening her resolve. The sound of their neighbors rallying behind them was like cool water in a dry desert, nourishing their fears and hopes. "Let's gather everyone," James said, his voice cutting through the remnants of disbelief. "We need a plan." Nodding, Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their ancestry press upon her. This land was theirs, and they had a right to protect it. She glanced at Margaret, Lucy, and Esther, all with eyes ablaze with determination. "Right," Sarah said, steeling herself. "We need to show everyone the importance of sticking together. If we share our story, maybe we can evoke the spirit of this community." Before long, the farmhouse buzzed with activity. Voices grew louder as neighbors filtered in, anxious yet eager to listen. Tables were pushed aside, and a hasty gathering formed. Sarah stood at the front, scanning the familiar faces from her childhood. Each one had strengthened her resolve to protect their legacy. "Thank you all for standing with us," she began, her voice steady. "Today we fought back, and today we won. But this isn't over. We need each other now more than ever." People leaned in, breaths catching as Sarah shared the struggles of their family, the joys and hardships faced on this land over generations. She spoke of harvested crops and hard winters, laughter echoing in summer sun. She painted pictures of a life rooted deeply in love and resilience. As she spoke, the room hung on each word. Light flickered in their eyes. The fear of losing what they loved transformed into a collective determination. "We can't let them take this from us," Lucy added, stepping forward. "This isn't just a piece of land, it's our home, and it belongs to future generations." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Esther raised her voice next, her tone earnest. "Let's form a committee. We can organize protests, reach out to the media, maybe even find ways to buy back what's ours." Excitement buzzed in the room. Plans began to take shape, and strategies developed as neighbors jumped in with their own ideas, building on Sarah's foundation. The weight they bore felt a bit lighter, shared amongst many. But as the conversation surged forward, Sarah felt a knot in her stomach. They were reacting, but were they prepared? Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. The community quieted, looking at each other apprehensively. The sound was followed by a swift entry, and in stepped a familiar face. Margaret's old friend, Clara, who held a note in her hand. "Guys, you won't believe what just came through the grapevine," she exclaimed, breathless and yet shining with urgency. Immediately, eyes turned to Clara, the quiet anticipation thick in the air. "What is it?" Sarah asked, her heart quickening. Clara took a moment before revealing. "The investors, they are planning something big. This isn't the last we've seen of them." Gasps filled the room, and an uneasy silence settled once again. Sarah's heart sank. What did this mean? Just as they thought they were finding hope, the looming shadow of danger overshadowed them once more. "What do we do now?" Lucy's voice trembled slightly, taking everyone by surprise. Suddenly, they were back at square one, facing an uncertainty that threatened their newfound resolve. Would they find the strength to face what was coming? As the specter of greed advanced, what would their next move be? The room felt heavy with tension. Sarah could see the uncertainty in the eyes around her. Walls that once felt sturdy now seemed ready to topple. She wished she could offer reassurance, but the words felt stuck in her throat. "Clara, what exactly do we know?" James asked, breaking the silence. His voice was calm, but Sarah sensed the same worry lurking beneath. Clara's gaze flickered across the room, as if searching for something to steady her own nerves. "I overheard them talking about a new plan, bigger attacks on the land. They're not just looking to take it, they want to destroy what's here." The revelation sent a wave of despair crashing over Sarah. Their home, their childhood, everything they loved, reduced to mere stakes in a game of greed. "We can't let this happen," she said, her voice rising. "We can't live in fear. We must act." Lucy exchanged glances with Esther. "What do we even do? They have money and power. How do we compete with that?" Sarah took a deep breath. Doubts nipped at her heels, but she couldn't succumb to them. "We fight with what we do have. Each other, love, and stories of this land. We fight with our history." The community murmured, some nodding. Esther stepped closer to Sarah, her expressions tightening with determination. "We gather every story, every battle fought before us. We need to remind everyone what this land means." "Exactly," James exclaimed, visibly igniting as he caught the fire in Sarah's eyes. "We mobilize people, declare our resolve, let them know we're not backing down." A wave of courage swept through the room, sparks of hope flying from face to face. They moved quickly, calling upon neighbors to join forces and share their personal histories. Little by little, voices rose, intertwining and weaving together a collective narrative that felt like a safety net. But as fervor filled the room, Sarah's heart remained heavy with an underlying fear. No matter how united they felt, the threats just outside were real and growing. Hours passed like moments, stories shared amongst laughter and tears. Then someone chimed in. "What if we create an event, a gathering to raise awareness and draw media attention?" "Yes, a festival," Lucy suggested, her spirit catching fire. "Something to celebrate our roots while calling attention to our fight." "This could invite more support," Clara added. "We may even get folks involved who haven't seen our struggles." The idea caused a ripple of conversation, excitement electrifying the space once again. But beneath it all, an unsettling truth crept in. There might not be enough to fend off the encroaching storm. As plans took shape, Sarah found herself distracted, retracing her thoughts back to that last knock on the door. It felt like a warning, marking their precarious situation. But she couldn't afford to dwell on it right now. They had to move forward. Just as the planning reached a fever pitch, another knock echoed through the farmhouse. Moments of blissful energy came to a sudden halt. All eyes turned to the door with a mixture. Clara crept to the door, peering through the gap. Her expression shifted from excitement to something else. Was it fear? Sarah leaned forward, the knot in her stomach tightening again. "Clara, who is it?" "It's the sheriff." Clara's voice wavered, her face pale. The room erupted into a new kind of chaos, this time one pulsing with a different kind of urgency. Could they trust him? Were they in danger? Sarah's heart raced, the moment of truth looming closer than ever. What would the sheriff bring? Answers or a new threat entirely? The battle was just beginning. The sheriff's figure loomed in the doorway, shadowed by the afternoon light. He was a sturdy man, his badge glinting with authority, but there was tension in his stance. Clara's breath hitched as she took a step back, barely letting him inside. "Good afternoon, folks," he said, his voice steady yet carrying an unspoken weight. "I need to talk to you all about the situation in town." Sarah's heart thundered in her chest. This was it, the moment they had both dreaded and anticipated. She straightened up and forced herself to meet his gaze. What situation? The sheriff approached the center of the room, drawing the eyes of every person present. "We've been getting reports about some serious plans from outside groups. I believe you've heard some rumors?" Murmurs erupted across the room. People shifted uneasily, glancing at one another. "Yes," Sarah finally said, stepping forward, her voice gaining strength as she did. "We're aware of it. We're coming together to protect our home." The sheriff cleared his throat, brow furrowing. "That's the thing. There are outsiders gathering. We don't know their numbers, but they're prepared to make a move soon. I wanted to warn you all." Clara's eyes widened. "Warn us? What does that mean?" "It means you should be careful. I can't promise safety, but—" He hesitated, glancing around the room, catching the mix of resolve and fear on every face. "I can help connect you with individuals who might be able to support your cause." Sarah felt a swell of gratitude mixed with skepticism. Could he be trusted? "Why would you help us?" Lucy asked, crossing her arms. "What's in it for you?" The sheriff sighed, the lines on his face deepening. "I fight for my community too. If you're able to mobilize public sentiment, that could deter them." A flicker of hesitation crossed his face. "And I hope we can bridge the gap between us." "And what if your support isn't enough?" Esther interrupted. "What if this is a ploy to keep us quiet?" The sheriff met her gaze, and for a moment silence enveloped the room. Tension twisted in the air like a vine, wrapping around everyone's shoulders. Finally, he spoke softly. "I understand your mistrust. All I know is that we need each other, now more than ever." A glance passed between Sarah and James, filling Sarah with a sense of urgency. They had to find allies, but time was slipping through their fingers like sand. "Let's do it," Sarah said, feeling a surge of determination wash over her. "If he's willing to help, we can take that as the first step. But we need to rally everyone. Nervous excitement coursed through the room again, though the shadow of doubt still drifted like smoke, lurking at the edges of their minds. There was too much at stake. "Okay," Clara said slowly, her tone more resolute. "We can start organizing right now. We gather everyone we know, start making plans for that festival, and for protection." As they turned back to the sheriff, he nodded in agreement. But before he could speak, there was a loud crash outside, followed by the sound of shouting voices. All heads snapped to the window, eyes wide. The festival wouldn't just be a celebration anymore. It was turning into a frantic protection of their lives, their stories, their legacies. "What's happening?" Clara gasped, her anxiety palpable in the air. "We need to find out," Sarah almost yelled, feeling a rush of adrenaline. They were stepping closer to the edge, and she could feel it. This fight was going to change everything. Without another thought, they surged towards the front door, ready to face whatever storm might be waiting just beyond. Would they be met with allies or foes? There was no turning back now. The battle lines were drawn. But who would truly stand with them when the world threatened to tear apart everything they held dear? The door creaked open, and the shouts spilled into the room like a whirlwind. Sarah, Lucy, and Esther stepped onto the porch, hearts thudding with the pulse of urgency. The sight before them sent chills through their bones. A group of men clad in dark jackets had surged towards the farmhouse, their faces hard with determination, shouting at the neighbors who were trying to stand firm. "Get off our land," one shouted, as townsfolk surrounded their property, standing resolute against the encroachment of greed. The air buzzed with energy, a collective heartbeat that pulsed through the entire community. "Everyone stand together," Sarah shouted, her voice ringing out strong and sure. In that moment, something shifted. The townsfolk, emboldened by a fearlessness they had forged in the fires of adversity, drew closer. "This is our home. We won't let them take it." The dark-clad men laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "You think you can protect this place? It belongs to the highest bidder," one smirked, stepping forward with an air of menace. That's when Margaret emerged from the house, fragile yet fierce, the embodiment of their legacy. "You think we're just a price tag?" she said, her voice echoing with clarity. "This land holds our love, our life's work. It's not something you can buy or sell." Together, the townsfolk cheered, voices lifting like a powerful chorus. They were not just standing for a farm, but for their existence. Every shared laugh and tear, every flicker of hope that had blossomed over the years. The realization settled in, deep and true, a community unified in love, ready to stand against the tide of greed threatening to wash away their legacy. As the men stepped closer, Sarah felt her sisters grip her hands tighter, the warmth grounding her. "This is it," she whispered, a mixture of adrenaline and fear dancing through her. "We will stand together." Suddenly, the sheriff raised his voice amidst the chaos. "Enough!" His authority broke through the noise. "Your threats hold no power here. The people of this town are ready to fight back, and I will stand with them. You will not take what isn't yours." The men faltered, taken aback by the united front that had formed. The sheriff continued, "Every hand you see here has helped build these fields. They will not be swayed by your money." His words were a shield, wrapping them in courage. The dark figures exchanged nervous glances. The place they once saw as a mere economic venture was now a battleground. A murmur hesitated in the air, waves of doubt crashing against the high walls they had built around their egos. "Let's go," one of the men finally spat in defeat, turning on his heel. But very few followed. Those remaining stood rooted, curiosity wrestling with fear. "Together we shine brighter than you know," Esther piped up, a clear note punching through their quiet resolve. "Every one of us matters. This is our history." With her words, the crowd roared back, "This is our home!" And in that moment, something magical unfolded. Each shout became a cadence, a deeper rhythm of unity that surged through everyone, binding them tighter together. The dark figures hesitated before slowly retreating, knowing this wasn't just a fight for land. It was a fight for family, heritage, love, the human spirit ignited in a way they could never extinguish. Sarah felt her heart swell as she looked at her sisters and the community standing strong beside them. They had not just saved their home today, they had ignited a spark that would echo through generations. Every shared challenge turned into a memory worth fighting for. Every voice that had once been silenced now sung out with purpose. As night fell, the stars twinkled overhead, a promise of hope and endurance beyond the immediate struggle. They had faced the storm, stood against the tide, and emerged not just intact, but stronger than ever. Sarah took a deep breath, glancing at Margaret's radiant smile, her mother, her guiding star, knowing that they would always be a family united in love. As Sarah surveyed the sea of faces around her, she realized what they held together couldn't be captured or sold. It was their legacy, and they would continue to fight for it. With that realization, the conclusion was clear. This was just the beginning, a testament that love could overcome any storm. So now, if you felt this journey, if the fight ignited a fire in your heart, we need your support. You need. Subscribe now to join us on this amazing journey of hope and love. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, helping more stories resonate into hearts like yours. Comment your reactions, your feelings about this incredible ending. We want to hear every emotion. And don't wait, not even one more second, to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let's spread the light of unity and love together.